how to eat at restaurants without getting fat. Sean here from Fit Fusion Brotherhood. I owned a gym for 10 years. I've coached thousands of clients, and obviously a lot of guys out there want to maintain their fitness goals while still being able to go out and eat at restaurants, order in, whatever it may be. Now, I know some guys do a lot more of that than others, but the good news is there is a way that you can absolutely stay on track. So in this video, I'm going to give you some great tips to help you mitigate some of those potential negative effects of eating at restaurants with regards to your fitness goals. Before I get into it, I want you to remember that a restaurant's goal is not to make things as healthy as possible for you. Their goal is to make things taste as good as possible. Now, there's usually a bit of a consequence when it comes to that. If something tastes good, it's usually very calorie dense. Okay, so just remember that going into it, and then these tips should hopefully help you be able to make some much better decisions while you're eating at your restaurant. Okay, so the first one, super important, very simple, is check the menu beforehand. So the last thing you want is to go to a restaurant, not know what you're going to have, kind of feel the pressure, the waiter or the waitress comes by and you're not sure what you get, and then you just kind of default to the simplest option. Instead, check the menu beforehand, and that way it's going to give you some time to actually make better choices. The good news is where I live, and I think where a lot of you live, there's actually a law that tells restaurants they have to put the number of calories on their menu. So you can actually see how many calories are on the menu. Now, if your main goal is fat loss, this is the most important thing. Okay, so sometimes we get so obsessed over choosing foods that are very nutrient dense, which is very important. But if your goal is fat loss, calories are king, because you're going to notice a lot of salads, a lot of bowls, a lot of things that you would think are the healthiest choices on the menu are going to have thousands of calories. So the most important thing when you're eating at a restaurant is to look at your overall calorie intake. And then kind of adding on top of that, it's not just calories, but it's your protein to calorie ratio. Now, we talk all the time about how important protein is, but if your goal is fat loss, you never want protein to come at the expense of a ton of additional calories, because that's going to halt your fat loss progress. So in a perfect world, you want to choose foods that have a lot of protein with relatively moderate or lower calorie intake as well. Also, another super important thing that a lot of guys make a big mistake of, because it seems a little counterintuitive, don't show up to the restaurant starving. So I know this makes a lot of sense. You feel like I'm going to fast all day, I'm not going to eat a lot of food, and then that way when I go to the restaurant, I'm just going to be able to eat what I want. The problem is when you arrive at a restaurant hungry, you're much more likely to overeat to the point where it gets crazy when it comes to your calorie intake. So what I would advise instead, number one, make sure you show up hydrated. So drink a lot of water beforehand, but also eat a lot of veggies and protein, food that's going to help you feel full, even though they're not very calorie dense. Next up, you want to make sure that whatever meal you're choosing, you want a protein anchor. So protein anchor means whatever food you're choosing, protein is going to be the star of that dish. And this should be relatively obvious, right? There's a difference between a chicken-centered dish versus a pasta-centered dish. You want protein to be the star. So choose a food on that menu that has a protein anchored or basis being the star of the dish. Okay, so protein comes first, build off of that. Next, if you have the option, you always want to choose grilled over fried. And another word for fried is crispy. So if you see a lot of menus with the word crispy, that means it's fried. But if it's grilled, you can save literally hundreds of extra calories. And honestly, the taste isn't that different. Okay, so if you have the choice, whether it's like a calamari or a chicken, whatever it is, and they give you the choice, or a fish of grilled versus fried, always choose the grilled. It really makes a big difference. Next, watch out for the sauces and the dressings. If you're ordering a salad, instead of having them pour the dressing on for you, ask to get it on the side. That way you can control your own. Dressings are one of those things, once again, that can be the difference of hundreds of calories, and it doesn't make a huge difference when it comes to your taste. So being able to control that yourself can really make a big difference. Next, mind the bread baskets on the table. So I know it's going to be super tempting to just go crazy with the bread, especially if you arrive hungry, but this is an easy way to add hundreds, if not thousands of calories, especially if you're adding the butter on top of that. So instead, what you want to do is you always want to order a health forward dish. And then if you're still hungry at the very end, that's when you can choose if you want some bread, if you want your dessert, but always start with the better choices, the healthier choices, because they fill you up more. They're not as processed. They're not going to force you to overeat as much as you would typically do with some of these high carb, high fat, high processed foods. Next, watch your liquid calories. So liquid calories, in a perfect world, you want to just be ordering water, maybe a Diet Coke, something like that. But realistically, we know that's not always going to be the case. If you're going out at a restaurant, there's probably a good chance that you might be ordering a drink or two. So understanding which ones are higher calorie, which ones are lower calorie, which ones are more conducive to your goals. This can be as simple as a regular beer versus a light beer. This can be as simple as a regular Coke versus a Coke Zero. These types of things can make an absolute huge difference as well. So the fewer liquid calories you're getting, the better. And then finally, even if all of these other things you already messed up, the one thing that you can do to help out is to really dial in beforehand. So get a really intense workout. If you're going to eat a lot of food, especially if it's very carb heavy, very fat heavy, one of the best things you can do to help mitigate that and use that to your advantage is to work out. So I would get a really intense workout, maybe a leg day, something heavier weight, something really high volume, something intense. That's just going to help mitigate some of those negative effects at the restaurant for you. Now, the more you eat out, the more these rules are going to apply. The more you really want to be conscious of it. If it's a once in a while type of thing, not the end of the world, of course. And I don't expect everyone to follow every single one of these, but these are all great tips that can make your life a lot easier. Being able to still have a social life, eat out, and maintain and consistently progress with your fitness goals. So if you guys do like videos like this, do us a huge favor, like, comment, and subscribe. I'll see you in the next one.